Hey guys, welcome to Chaotically Creating. I'm Oliver, and today we are going to work on, I have this drawing prompt book where it has 300 different drawing prompts, where it has anything from a banjo to, let's see, a laughing donkey, or we got angel's wings and Dr. Seuss hat to a circus tent and skyline. So it's just got a ton of random stuff in it. And I will be showing you today the process of going to one that I drew randomly. And the three prompts that I got for today's video were Egyptian Pharaoh, exit sign, and old pocket watch. So enjoy my interpretation of that. Alright, so when I got these prompts, I kind of immediately thought about doing something about an Egyptian god surrounding the death process and the death and mummification process in Egyptian culture. And so I started out by taking some notes on the Egyptian god Anubius, and I did some concept art on the right or the left, but we'll see that later, or at least his drawing on the actual thing, so we won't get that right now. But it was kind of nice because I already had some background on what Egyptian art practices were, so I was able to replicate the design and style a lot better with that. But in my last year, I took a surveyed art class, and we compared Egyptian culture to a lot and learned about like the nuances of it, and so that really helped me later on in the video. And yeah, but I end up doing the kind of initial concept is to have Anubius escaping a coffin from the underworld, and he's directing towards the exit sign with the pocket watch is signaling time of death. And at the right now, like this point, I hadn't really known where I was going to go, but I knew that this was the idea that I wanted to start with, so I was like, okay, I'll start here. But later it starts to get a lot more intricate, and the storytelling of the element really comes out, which was really exciting to see. And I have doubts about kind of making this like more historical, like history lesson a little bit video, but I think it's really fun paired with the art, and I'm really happy with how it turned out in the end. So look forward to that in the later of the video. But next we're going to look at some initial inspiration sketches for the coffin and what Anubius will look like. So here is that. I'm going to look at some reference photos, and I have my iPad with Pinterest here with already some ideas. But I have this 300-day drawing prompts file Pinterest board that I started creating, and I can put it in the description if you guys want to try your hand at it too. But the idea here is kind of creating this cartoonish, not necessarily the complete detail, but drawing inspiration on kind of the Egyptian art and how it looks. And in Egyptian culture, their perspective of their art is always where the pharaohs are pointing. So the Egyptians really had this like two perspective where you wouldn't see them in like a tilted plane. It would be either like facing forward to the side or kneeling. And so I kind of want to do that with Anubius here, and creating the coffin based off of the Egyptian pharaoh characteristics, where it really has this giant headdress and headpiece, and they always are usually wearing skirts and kind of that standard Egyptian, like when we see the Egyptian coffin, this is what we see. So I'm going to be taking inspiration from that. So I guess let's just get started. So I kind of missed some footage there, so sorry about that, but here's a jump cut to now where we're at with Anubius. So he is a pharaoh that In Egyptian culture, the pharaohs were often god kings, or the kings were pharaohs and kind of one and the same. Um, and often they were portrayed as animals. And so Anubius is portrayed as a jackal, and they are associated with the underworld and protection. And he is associated with death because often you will find jackals lurking cemeteries and eating decomposing flesh. So, but they help protect the bodies from being devoured, and Anubius balances the scales in the Hall of Truths. So, very important to the journey of going into the afterlife, and we'll talk more about the Hall of Truths later. But yeah, so this is kind of the color palette we're going with for the Egyptian side. I really like the blue that he is in. It really brings some nice color into it, and I'll bring it back on the other side too to kind of juxtapose it, which is fun because it's blue where we wouldn't necessarily expect it to be blue, so that's fun. But I end up taking a huge break from this, so the next clip you'll see is from like 4 months later. I was at my dad's when I recorded this, and in the next clip I will have been moved in for over a month now into my own place. So, oops, but I'm getting back to it, and so, yeah, the next thing will be that, and then we'll be working on the coffin.
Okay, so it's been quite a while since I've updated this. But here's where we're at right now. I last worked on this, I think, back in May, and it's September now. So I've been working on this one for a while, but a lot of just life has happened. So I want to design a little bit more of where I want to go with this moving forward. I took some notes on what I want to talk about, so that's what I have here, 2 different sites, and then I have more here, so that will be part of the voiceover, but I kind of wanted to talk a little bit here just in real time of my thought process behind what I was doing. So we have Egyptian Pharaoh, exit sign, and old pocket watch, which honestly, in my opinion, go really well together, especially with what I picked. So I am drawing Anubius. This is Anubius. He is in a jackal form, and he is escaping out of the tomb, and he is the god that kind of is there at the end of life, that kind of is part of weighing the feather against the heart. And so it's kind of like exit sign leads to the end of time or whatever, and the pocket watch is kind of that time element. So I'm not quite sure what I want to do with the background yet, but I kind of want, like, I almost want to relate this a little bit to, it works really well because the fantasy series that I am working on writing, I want it to be based in Egyptian mythology, so the fact that this was part of it and that I was able to use it to research more of this is helpful. And so I'm going to probably do like kind of some more Victorian steampunk style stuff here.
Alright, and so now we're moving on to the coffin, and I'm going to talk about some of the funeral practices that were part of Egyptian culture. So the mummification process began in the early dynasty, which was 3150 to 2686 BCE. I'll put a picture up here of the different dynasties and periods of Egyptian culture because it's a wide range and a lot of different ones. And I don't want to just list them all off, but rather just have an overview there with that. So the tomb comprised of 2 parts. There was an above burial chamber, and then there was an above ground offering for the living. The dead had to be perpetually fed food in this area, so that's why there was a second area for the living, and the food was provided to what they called the ka, which joined the deceased at the burial, which I think the ka is almost a form of a soul, but they have a lot of different terminologies around this. So when the person died, they became an ak, or ghost, which could act upon living. And then there is also the Ba, which could leave the tomb and explore the cosmos in the form of a bird with a human head, but the corpse was stuck in the tomb. So during the process of like creating this video, I've been to a lot of library book sales where you get a bag for $5 and as many books as you can fit. And I found so many Egyptian books recently. I found one on the mummification process, and like probably 20 today. I got like 3 or 4, but I haven't looked at it all yet. And I got one on England's history, or the monarchy of their lineage. But I had to stop myself because otherwise this video would never get out, because I would just be researching forever. So I'm going to put a little clip here of a haul that I got.
So here's all the books I got from the library bag sale. This is a few of them, but so I found this Kings and Queens Book of England and Scotland. It has Victoria in here, and then it's got all these dates, so that will be really helpful. We got Egyptian mythology, and this one's really cool photos, so, and like questions, and it's easier to read kind of thing. We got pyramids, temples, and tombs of ancient Egypt, which also, this one's got some really beautiful art in there, especially because the tombs have stuff in there. Chronicles of Ancient Egypt, so again, more kind of stuff there. And then this one's a little bit past the Victorian age, when they discovered Tutankhamun. Get off the counter. Get down. Get down. Dumb cat. And then I found this Great Scientists book from the Time magazine, and it has a bunch of scientists from the time period. So we got Charles Darwin's in here somewhere. There's just a ton, and to understand the art better, you gotta understand the science, and it was very scientific revolutionary period of time. So, but then the mummy in ancient Egypt. So this is an entire book on funerary practices and the mummy, and is why I had to stop while I was ahead. So yeah, I got quite a bit of research to help with.
Alright, so now we're going to work on the exit sign, and this is where the story kind of starts to unfold a little bit. But I make the exit sign in a Victorian steampunk theme, and this is where I started to connect it to my actual fantasy series that I'm writing, which I briefly mentioned earlier, but the series is based on a steampunk futuristic fantasy sci-fi world, and the current running title right now is called Book of Life series, but it follows the main character Aether, a sparkly green dragon cyborg, and his traveling shop. I'll insert some concept art of him here on the side, but think Howl's Moving Castle with his traveling shop meets Mortal Engines, and the theme of how that series looks and works meets cyberpunk technology mixed with magic. And this series is based off of Egyptian, Norse, and Japanese myth in the steampunk genre. And so steampunk is from 19th to 20th century, so it's Queen Victoria's era of reign, so essentially 1837 to 1901. And it's reimagined with futuristic technology and magic in a futuristic realm. There are multiple different types where we could have hyper vintage, techno fantasy, retro futurism, but most of the time it's set in the British Victorian era, or there's also versions of it in the American Wild West. But it generally doesn't take place, it does not considered after post World War I. But this is kind of where the storytelling developed, because the Egyptian mythology led me to connect the artwork with my own story, which then brought up 2 ideas, which the first one was to turn the entire 300 prompts into concept art for the Book of Life,
which I'm gonna do. So that means we have 297 more prompts to do, and research to follow. So I don't know. It makes me excited to do research. So I'm not upset about that. But it also allowed me to tell the history of the Egyptian art mythology and compare it to Victorian art, which is something I took a class on, and determining and like taking more detailed notes, and not notes I guess, but like really observing art and reflecting on like why was this the way they did it, why did they interpret it this way, because in art, and especially now in what we see in the world, there is so much stuff that is produced and art that we see that we don't think about. Like every business logo and all of that stuff had intention behind it, and so I think it's really fun to look back on history and understand why they kind of did that. So the last clip we have here will be some common characteristics of Egyptian art then are things are always in hierarchy. There's often hierarchy scale, which is where the most impactful figure, it's often the pharaoh, are depicted as the largest part. And then there's often perspective in 90 degrees, which is composite pose, and it's depicted from multiple viewpoints simultaneously to create stable, static pose. And they cared about the unchanging truths of what they represented. They were very, the symbolism in the Egyptian art was very significant, and is why the art style had so little change throughout it. And then they incorporated text as part of the art, which is a lot of the times when we see paintings and there's words on it, it like uglifies art. That's not a word, but that's kind of what it does to us, I guess. But the hieroglyphs often gave information and background information on the symbolism of the piece. Here's the wrap up of the exit sign, and the next thing I'll be working on is the scales from the Book of Dead that represent the heart weighed against the feather of Ma. Okay, this is going to be a new thing that I kind of want to include in some of these videos, but it's three things. It's going to be struggles, learning, and enjoyment of each thing, because I think it's important to showcase that not every part of the process goes well, and that even if it does go better, like there's still parts that like you learn every time. And so the struggles for this video were I didn't know the theme that I wanted, and I doubted the interest level, just because I wasn't sure if people would really enjoy more of a history lesson kind of thing, but I enjoy it, and I know I can make it fun, and I really am happy with how the drawing turned out, so I am doing it anyways. And then once I had an idea of the direction of what topic for the video, I had to cut myself off of research at a certain point, because otherwise I would just keep going, and it would never get done. So I tried to only let myself, like, I accomplished this by trying to let myself only get a few articles for everything. It didn't go as well when I got to the Victorian era, just because I don't know the history as well, and there's also so much wide variety there that it's hard to like kind of like say this is the definitive style of the Victorian era. But I was like, there are 297 more prompts to spend researching. I don't need to cram so much into this one video, and so that's kind of the struggles I had. And then for learning, I improved my script writing greatly. I used, here, one second. Okay, so I used Milanote for this project, and this is kind of my base outline that I have. So there's like links and stuff in here, and actually all the links that I used, and then reference photos. And then this was kind of my rough draft, I guess, where, well, here was the very original idea, and just like, okay, exit Egyptian Pharaoh time. Anubius, god of underworld, escaping tomb, leads to exit, and time dropping off, or the pocket watch dropping over. And then I have funerary practice, Book of Dead, fantasy series, Steampunk, Victorian Age, Egyptian versus Victorian Age, creative design process for research, brief background on Egyptian pharaohs, 300 prompts intro, and integration of filming process, where the struggles, learning, enjoyment that we have now. And I like try to pick like 3 things. This one got a little bit more just because of whatever, but I like picked 3 things within it, and then I took this information and I put it into a Word document where I took our main things and made them the main topics, and then put down the things that I want to say, and then these are interjections of like talking about the creative process. These are, the blue is videos that I already had recorded to put in, and then this orange is photos or videos or something to add on screen. So I did that for all of it, and it actually made the process a lot more enjoyable because I didn't feel so like all over the place, because I like can't write the script word for word, but I also can't just fly by the seat of my pants, and that really helped that. So that was the learning, or what was that? I got all lost here now. That was the part of the learning. I learned better script organization, and that also was part of the enjoyment, where the planning helped increase my productivity, and it made the process after creating artwork feel less overwhelming, which increased confidence. So I also, for enjoyment, I loved working on the design concept, and just how like intricate it started to get towards the end of it, and how much like meaning it now has to me, and how like it feels a lot more special because there is a story behind it. And yeah, so that was kind of SLE. I don't know what we'll call it, but it's something. Okay, so when you're at the like end of life, you made it in Egyptian culture. You made it to what is called the Hall of Truths, which is where your heart was weighed up against the feather of Ma'at, which is the god of Egyptian culture that symbolizes truth and justice. And so, if your heart equaled the feather, you were free to pass on into the afterlife. But if your heart did not equal the feather, you were devoured by a 3-part beast that was originally a crocodile head, a lion body, and then hippo feet, or rear end of it. And so, to kind of represent this and combine the two, I made the scale, and I made it like Victorian era, very like fancy, kind of embellished with it. I love how the scale turned out. It's amazing. And then instead of having like just a normal heart, it's a mechanical heart weighed up against a mechanical crow. And then I like changed the scales to be gears, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. But some of the characteristics of Victorian art now was the society was very gender and class based, so the art reflected this divide where we have the like fallen woman, or like, there was a lot of nude bodies, highly detailed and realistic style. Owning art was often high class men, and it was very rare to see women producing work. It was the battle of the styles during the early Victorian, where we had the Gothic revival, classicism, revived Rococo. The late Victorian was the most lucrative, and you could spend a whole class just itself learning about its variations. So I had to stop myself. But also during this time was the aspect of aestheticism rose, which is art for art's sake from 1860 to 1900s, which is thinking about art that is beautiful rather than deep meaning, like what was done in Egypt. And there, you cannot find any accurate American history where the buildings and architecture that we see now were not at one point influenced from Victorian era art, which I think is kind of cool. But some things that they both had is that the Rosetta Stone was discovered during the Victorian age, and this unlocked the ability to decode hieroglyphs. And so this like created what they call Egyptomania, where there was just a greater appreciation for Egyptian art and culture because they could finally read the text and understand all the symbolism that was in it. Prince Albert had the great exhibition of works of all nations built that depicted pharaohs in the center. I'll put a photo up now.
And then they also had the horticulture style, but for different purposes, which this is like using plants as stuff. Egyptians, it was a lot more symbolism and functionality, which was true for a lot of their art too. Like their palettes were used for ritualistic purposes, and while Victorian, it was more class-based and a display of wealth, aesthetic, like beautiful design, like layout and stuff, and finding like all of these exotic plants that would cost a lot of money and display your wealth. So, yeah, but I had a lot of fun with this drawing, and I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. So.
I don't know how to end it. Well, thanks guys. I hope you enjoyed this video, and remember to hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and if you like the video, give it a thumbs up, and leave a comment on what your favorite mythology is. There we go. We'll try doing questions at the end, because that's fun. But yeah, or your favorite time period, or something that is your favorite little weird trivia history fact thing that you got. Make it fun. I don't know. But yeah, thanks for watching. This has been Chaotically Creating.